Hello, Anavultus here, and I just wanted to record my thoughts on X-Men Apocalypse, which I saw just today, the day that I'm recording this, and just doing, I suppose, a first impression or a first impression movie review on it. So it is an X-Men movie, which means there's a lot of different characters with superpowers in it, if you don't know what X-Men is. But on its own, I don't think it would stand as a standalone movie, simply because a lot of the plot elements and a lot of the backstory of the characters were established in X-Men First Class, as well as X-Men Days of Future Past. So if you're thinking of going to watch this movie by itself, I suggest that you at least watch those other two movies first. So when I went into the movie theater and the movie started playing, after various trailers for other movies, I noticed the opening scene. I found it very interesting because it reminded me a lot of another movie, which is Stargate, in the sense that it's ancient Egypt, and there is this godlike overlord who is being served by the regular humans, and he lives in he doesn't live in a pyramid, but an event takes place inside of a pyramid, and he switches bodies in order to survive for the ages. And I found that very interesting. I mean, I'm not saying that X-Men Apocalypse is a ripoff of Stargate, because it's not. It's clearly not. I don't know who came up with the idea of having... Well, anyway, what I'm trying to say is that the original comic story is a bit less similar to the Stargate story, so I don't think that there's any ripping off going on here. It's just a take on that just happens to be similar in some ways. But that's one thing I found interesting. In other ways, certain parts of the story seemed a little bit hasty, as in, for example, McTaggart, when she first goes into Cerebro, she doesn't know what's going on, and when she comes out of it, she clearly knows what's going on, and she knows that there's some really big, powerful guy who's been doing all these things, and I'm thinking, is there something I missed? Because there was not that much expository dialogue put on that, which I suppose that bothered me slightly, but I suppose it can be explained away. The villain, Apocalypse, I'm pretty sure that he is not exactly like the comic book counterpart, but of course in Marvel Comics and other comics, for example, it seems to be very common for people to take artistic license, in the sense that there are many different versions of the same character, and some characters have various attributes in different versions that others don't, so I don't really see that as a problem. It's just that if you're expecting a specific continuity from the comics, don't, because the movie continuity is slightly different. Not that that's a bad thing, but speaking of continuity, one thing that I've been wondering about a little bit, I haven't read up on this, so do not take my word as something that is a solid opinion or something that I am willing to defend, because if I'm wrong, I will not defend it at all. But in regards to continuity with the other X-Men movies, I was never exactly sure as to how all the movies fit together continuity-wise, in the sense that I knew which movie is set after which movie and how that all goes, but they don't all fit together continuity-wise. It's like trying to fit Africa to South America, and you realize that it doesn't actually fit geographically. So, for one example of this is Wolverine. Wolverine shows up in a scene, and he shows up as Weapon X, and I find that interesting in the sense that if you're going by Wolverine origins, of course Hugh Jackman plays Wolverine in all these different movies, so you'd assume that maybe the continuity is the same, but I don't think it is. For example, in Wolverine Origins, let me look something up real quick. What I'm saying is Wolverine is different in the sense that certain events that happen are not the same. Let me search. I'm thinking of Stryker, the character on X-Men, or whatever his name is. He's a character, and what I'm wondering is how Wolverine Origins fits into all of this. Let's see. I'm pretty sure one of the characters in X-Men Apocalypse is Stryker, William Stryker, not William T. Riker, that's different. But, yeah, played by Josh Hellman. So, since the actor is younger, it would be assumed that in X-Men Days of Future Past and X-Men Apocalypse happens before X-Men Origins Wolverine, because the actor is obviously younger than the other one. But X-Men Origins Wolverine, if I had to force it into a place in the continuity, I'd have to place it between Days of Future Past and Apocalypse, because he's got his adamantium claws in Apocalypse, but he does not have them in Days of Future Past. Another thing is Patrick Stewart as Professor X. That seems to be a continuity of its own, but so you've got all the different X-Men movies. You've got X-Men, X-Men United, and X-Men 3, whatever the third one is called. I don't hate on me because I don't know off the top of my head. I've probably got it written down somewhere. But anyway, those don't exactly fit either, because if you look at X-Men Origins Wolverine, Scott already has his ruby quartz glasses, and he's going to a regular school, so he's not at he's not with Professor X at the mansion. and he's got his ruby quartz glasses, which is something that he gets in X-Men Apocalypse. So if you go with X-Men Origins Wolverine also, it means this happens shortly after Wolverine gets his adamantium claws, and the events of the movie, the main body of the movie, are not that far apart timescale wise. But if you then, it then also means that it doesn't fit. That's what I'm trying to say. So X-Men Origins Wolverine does not fit with X-Men Days of Future Past and X-Men Apocalypse. Those movies, Age of Apocalypse, or just Apocalypse, Days of Future Past, and First Class, those work together in a continuity. X-Men United, as well as the third X-Men movie, those also work well together. X-Men Origins Wolverine is somewhere in there. Another thing is Nightcrawler. His origin story seems to be slightly different in because he shows up in X-Men 2 and in X-Men not Days of Future Past, X-Men Apocalypse, he has a slightly different origin story. So that's something interesting. Okay, I've got all the list of the movies now. So you've got X-Men 2, X-Men The Last Stand. Yeah, that's the third X-Men movie. X-Men Origins Wolverine, which I think still fits into this original movie continuity, I suppose. X-Men First Class, The Wolverine. The Wolverine, I think, fits also in with the first continuity. However, it doesn't have to. It could also fit in with the other one if you wanted it to. X-Men First Class, The Wolverine, Days of Future Past, Apocalypse. Here I'm on Wikipedia right now. They're counting Deadpool as part of that, of the X-Men movie franchise. I suppose it's because the same people made it. Don't take my word for that. But anyway, the villain Apocalypse, he was alright. We didn't really get a villain motivation for Psylocke. She didn't really get any real backstory at all. In fact, out of the Four Horsemen, she got the least backstory. Her powers aren't explained either, so it's something that happens, I suppose. And Magneto, I think at the end of the movie, there's some things that are unresolved. It looks like Professor X and Magneto have reconciled, and they have put their past behind each other, behind themselves. But still, for me, needs to be addressed as the fact that Magneto did in fact murder the policeman in that one scene, and also he destroyed a lot of infrastructure, and well, spoiler alert, okay, if you haven't gotten it already, this is a spoiler alert, major time spoiler alert. I think it's Apocalypse goes to, I believe it's Cairo, and he basically levels the city and builds a giant pyramid. And then Magneto then goes on to level the rest of the city and pull up all the stuff out of all the sunken ships out of the bottom of the ocean. And Magneto is basically destroying all of human civilization on the entire crust of the earth, which I think is pretty big, even for Magneto, let's be honest. And wow, he partially does it too. So I'm wondering, at the end, it's sort of not a happy ending for him, but it doesn't really address that people would want to have him pay for this. There needs to be some sort of justice. And from what we see, he doesn't get the justice. I mean, he did end up eventually turning and saving the world, along with the X-Men, but there just is not... There are just some things that you can't just wipe under the rug. For example, the fact that he basically tried to destroy the entire world. Maybe I've used the word basically a little bit too much in this reaction video. Find bros sticking their hands in my pocket alert. I'm joking. They're probably not going to say, oh my goodness, he said the word reaction, now he's going to break our copyright. No. I don't think they're that bad with that. But seriously, Magneto has to at least turn himself in and go to prison or something. He needs to turn himself in for what he's done, but he doesn't. So that just bothers me a little bit. But anyway, the scale of the conflict certainly is large. The entire, well, most of the human race is at risk. Simply because Magneto suddenly is powerful enough to devastate the Earth's surface by ripping out all the metal that people have worked and all this various things. There's a scene where he goes to where Apocalypse takes him and sort of, I suppose it teleports him or wormholes him or whatever to Auschwitz, where Magneto just levels the entire complex. Oh, and another thing I wanted to talk about is language. I like the fact that they decided to put certain parts in the language that it would have natively been. For example, in Egypt they spoke, I suppose it's Arabic. In Poland they spoke Polish. In Germany they spoke German. But the problem I've had here is the fact that they're not as consistent as I'd like them to be, in a sense. And also there's some I suppose problems with the suspension of disbelief when you realize that, oh yeah, they're speaking Polish in Cold War era Poland, yeah, which makes sense, but then they're speaking English, and there is a sort of disconnect when you realize that, I don't think that many people in Cold War era Eastern Europe spoke English. Of course, I could be wrong. Maybe English was a widely taught area in the Soviet bloc, but widely taught language, that is, not area. Yes, this region is called England. Yes, we all know that. We all went to school. Well, let's pronounce it with me. England. 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 England? Okay, that's not... Anyway, I think the action was good. It was interesting. I wasn't bored during the movie at any point. I liked the scenes that had Quicksilver in them. I liked them in Days of Future Past. I liked them in X-Men Apocalypse. Let's be honest, Quicksilver is the coolest character. He is so amazing. And there's a point where he actually tries to go toe-to-toe with Apocalypse, and he starts beating on him. But I suppose Apocalypse gets the hang of it and eventually manages to stop him in his tracks, literally, by trapping his foot in the ground so that he can't run. But, yep. Quicksilver was amazing. It just, no questions asked, amazing. So anyway, if you've got anything to add, if you'd like me to comment on something specific in the movie, if you'd like to debate me on something, then please write in the comments below. If you liked this video, please do like it. If you, for some reason, thought this video was the worst thing ever, I'll be honest, I'm not trying to make this a Hollywood level production. I'm just putting my thoughts out there, so there's not going to be much editing. If you hated it so much, if it really puts your soul at ease, then do dislike. But if you liked it, like it. If you'd like to see more videos on, I suppose, various things that I'm doing, then feel free to subscribe. I'm thinking of going to watch Independence Day 2. I've seen the original Independence Day. It's a good movie. It's a comedy sci-fi classic. By the way, made by the same people that made Stargate, so that's a loop back around to the beginning, which actually means I'm actually excited for the Stargate remake. I don't know how exactly they're going to remake it. Hopefully they will not involve J.J. Abrams. I'll be honest, I don't like the artistic choices of J.J. Abrams in the Star Wars, the new Star Wars movies, as well as the new Star Trek movies. I mean, I'm sure some people like it, and I'm not saying that it's bad. I'm just saying that I'm not quite too fond of it. So after, I suppose that's it for now. I've spoken for almost 25 minutes. So, Anultus, over and out. And on another note, the word apocalypse, what really bothers me is that a lot of people don't actually know what it means. They just translate it wrong. And this has persisted so much that it has entered the vernacular, in which case, what I'm saying is, when somebody translates something or interprets something wrong enough times, it becomes the proper definition of the word. I'm not too happy about that. But anyway, apocalypse comes from the Greek apocalypsis, which means uncovering or revelation. As it, for example, in the Bible, the book of Revelation is in some versions known as Apocalypse. So the reason people associate it with the end of the world is probably because of the contents of that same book. And people say, oh, we've read the Apocalypse of St. John. So what is an apocalypse? Oh, I'm not very learned with my vocabulary definitions, so I'm assuming that since the book is about the end of the world, apocalypse must mean end of the world. That's probably what someone did at some point, and, well, I suppose that's what happens when people assume words mean certain things without actually checking. So, thank you all for watching.